Last week, I had an unscripted conversation with some of my business besties just about life beyond the 9 to 5. And so we decided to go ahead and make that available to you guys. We talk about how to rewrite your past experience and life history to help you in your next chapter, dealing with imposter syndrome as a woman, some of the challenges that we have faced and that you might be facing, giving yourself credit for the work you've done, and lots more really great topics. So go ahead, dive in. We're picking up right where Christy starts talking about her first experience of writing a case study and some of that struggle to give herself credit for the work she's done. So I hope you enjoy.
I have been working on case studies and how to win with that the past week.
I want to hear more about the case study because that's something I haven't done. What did you do and where did you put it and what was the win? Tell us more.
Like if I was to do my one-liners, basically, I am a technology consulting company that specializes in what I'm calling project incubation. So helping clients with their data-centric projects and making those into reality, from like inception to deployment of a system or something like that. So the case study is going to have kind of a long paragraph format, and then I'm going to use her testimonial on my website.
How did it feel going back and kind of like taking a closer look at how you supported them and the impact that it had?
It actually felt really empowering because, well, my first draft of the case study was okay. Like it just literally wrote what I did, but tweezing out things and like making bigger claims like, hey, yes, I was part of a team, but I got this thing implemented, and taking ownership of that was quite hard. It was kind of like this internal struggle to take ownership. And then really so in each paragraph, I tried to pick one like big impact statement and to like craft getting that statement and highlighting it so that as someone's skimming the case study, if they just read like the 4 highlighted statements, how it produces a clear story. I'm an engineer, so this type of marketing stuff is really new to me. So I felt really proud of myself and how it's turned out.
Yeah, I kind of had that feeling about my blog. I was like, I need to have like 6 articles written before I go live with the blog. And then I ended up just giving up on that, and I started with 1. And now I have 4.
It's amazing how you can just, if you can like start and like build consistency around it, then things really do add up.
Yeah, I feel like I've finally gotten like the content train under control and consistently rolling down the tracks. So I've got most of my content scheduled through like June 7th. Like it's all just on auto at this point. It's all on Social Champ. So yeah, for me, it was really just, I think, getting to not be traveling all the time. Like it's like everyone has their own like thing that's blocking them. And that was my thing, was like it's just hard when you're always doing like migrating around, to stay focused. So
you had such a season of like transit.
It's been weird because now I like live in this little local house surrounded by fields, and there's nothing to do here except go to waterfalls, which is amazing, but also it's like really easy to work because it's not like, oh, there's an event, there's like stuff going on, there's like nothing to do here. So
yeah, I feel like that's kind of my problem with this summer, like coming here and like I'm trying to do this big backpack, and so I've been like, oh, I got to train, and it's just one case study, and like getting that, like that's a small enough bite that I can like even like go away for a while, I can come back to it. It's great.
I love the theme that you're sharing of like small bites, and that like the train doesn't stop even when you kind of like do take a step away from things for a minute. That's kind of where I've been the last 2 months, essentially, like since I moved and was like really struggling to find balance and kind of had to let a lot of things drop, and that was really hard. But I'm moving through it, so I really respect that, Christine.
At the beginning of the year, I like did a lot of big pushes for me, which was like trying to learn all this business stuff, and me being an introvert, I was like trying to go to all these networking events, but I've made a lot of contacts and gotten more clear on like what projects I want to work on, which helps me. But I got so overwhelmed by it. I just like I just dropped it for a month because I was just like, I can't even, this is like giving me too much anxiety. I'm not sleeping well. I don't know if you guys go through that.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
That's like something I've experienced with like other like hobbies and things that I'm kind of trying to apply to myself now. Like I'm a dancer, and whenever I have taken breaks from dancing and like put it down for a certain period of time, just like not had a studio or something to go to, whenever I come back to it, I always feel like stronger. The like movement feels more in my body. I feel more confident. And I've been kind of like telling myself like maybe that will happen here, that like that now that I'm putting this down for a second, it can breathe and I can come back to it in an even more like powerful and intentional way.
Yeah. I think it's really important to take extended breaks. Like it doesn't have to be a month, but I feel like sometimes we're just like always thinking about it in the back of our heads, you know? And it can be good to take like even like 3 or 4 days off. And I think a lot of the advice that you get, especially in like American culture, is like you just need to work every day and work harder and do more and push more. And then you too can be a millionaire that also has anxiety and depression and still isn't happy with their life, you know? Because
Yeah.
like I've seen so many even like public figures in the past couple months. I've been seeing them like, yeah, I'm a millionaire, but also like I still have anxiety about my business. And
Mm.
I'm just like it does, like that stuff like doesn't go away unless you like work on all the internal stuff, you know? Like it doesn't matter. Like you're never gonna get to a point where you're like, oh, now I don't feel the pressure. Was my takeaway from that. Because I've heard like probably at least four that I can think of, like people that are, self-proclaimed millionaires. They're like, yeah, I still deal with all this anxiety and depression and like self-worth around my business.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Learning to um, manage it.
I recently started Burn Rate, which is by the CEO of Bonobos. It's like a men's clothing store.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about how like he has bipolar disorder and how he like used his mania to like fuel his business growth. But then it ended up like eating him alive, and everything almost like crashed because he was constantly manic all the time, and the like hubris and drive that came with his bipolar disorder was this like tech benefit, but also like completely like imploded his life. And I think that that's
Yeah.
such a valid and like hard thing to evaluate, is like, how do we run healthy businesses? How do we be
Right.
healthy in ourselves, as opposed to this startup mentality that tells us that you like need to be manic all the time to be successful.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I've been following like Alex Hormozy for probably about a year now. And now that he's doing all this big stuff with school, like even just the past couple months, he looks like so unhappy in like all his stuff. Like he's just like not, he just doesn't look like he's having a good time. And he's on that like push harder, do more, like you're just not good enough, like you just need to do it. And I'm just like, I don't actually want to be you right now. Like money's great, but if like that's where that gets you, like I'll take less money and just be happy and laughing every day.
Go run through more waterfalls.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
that was also very helpful for me, was to say, okay, like if I get this amount of money this year, all my needs have been met.
Mhm.
I still have like, I'm still saving a bit for retirement. I'm still having a travel budget. So that helped like me bound that this earlier this year, and just like, okay, as long as my business is making close to this, like that's really successful. If I can do that with not a lot of stress, like it's kind of was the point for me of having my business, is to lead the life I want with not all the stress.
I feel like there's something to be said for like not giving up on things too soon.
Mhm.
And I feel that a lot right now because I'm like doing a lot of new things, like making YouTube videos. And I like this week I spent a whole day, and when I say a whole day, I mean from like 8 a.m. to like 7 p.m., just like working on content and like learning how to do it right and how to edit it right. And like I had to refilm a bunch of stuff because like I didn't have the audio good and like, just stuff like that. As I'm getting more into the video stuff. And I built myself a good system and it's been easy since then. I think it's going to be easier going forward, but sometimes you have to like give yourself enough time, I think, to get good at things and get to the place where you feel like, you really have found your niche and like it feels good. I think I finally found mine. It took me a long time, but longer than I wanted it to. But now, like, I don't even have to think about content ideas. It's just in my head. I have so much to say on these topics.
Yeah, I'm getting there too. Which has been nice. For a long time when I was working corporate stuff, I was like creatively blocked, and I wasn't having a lot of like unique thought. And so it has been nice in the past 3 months as I'm starting to like really think about things in a different way to the point where I go to talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, I never thought about something that way, which tells me like, oh, maybe there's like some content here that I could create, that like write a blog about it or something. So yeah, I feel the same way where it's like, okay, I have all these ideas now. For me, I think I'm gonna focus more on LinkedIn or blogs, but how do you guys decide what format time into?
That's such a great question and like a really both like a hard one to answer and I think one that's like very specific to the business that you're running. Um, because you like as entrepreneurs we are I think and solopreneurs we sometimes see these like major businesses that have like every single channel covered and that's just not possible as a single entity until unless you have like a lot of money or I don't know, there's the guy who like runs a cult of like boys who like they like run on social media, like unless you have a cult of children doing all your marketing. It's like not, it doesn't happen that way. And so that's where I would say like pick the things that are most important to you. Like for you, Christine, if your like main audience is engineers, maybe you need to be on GitHub publishing things, or like where are the people that you're going to be talking to at and where they already having conversations, and then focus on building consistency there. For me, it was LinkedIn. I started with like all of these different social channels and kind of like really pared down to just start posting on LinkedIn. And I found that it really didn't have any impact on anything. I was just spending so much less time doing social media, and I was still getting the same amount of leads because I was qualifying them because my audience was job seekers. There's a hell of a lot of job seekers on LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
I was able to kind of like narrow my focus, spend more energy there, and not see a negative impact because I wasn't like posting to Facebook.
Yeah, I think for me, I've also kind of tried out a lot of different platforms. I think, Morgan, everything you said is like on point. It's just like choosing where you want to go. But another thing that I do, maybe to add on to that, is I try to think about how I can repurpose and reuse content. So then I can post on multiple channels without any extra work. And so, or very minimal extra work. So I write the long form blog posts because honestly, I come across best like when when I'm writing or when I'm like on video. I figured that out. Like that's what people respond to is like me talking or me like, just like laying out a concept. That works the best for me. So, and as a coach, where are my people? Like some of them might be on LinkedIn. They're definitely like a lot of coaches use Instagram and YouTube. So yeah, so I write my long form blog posts and then I record them as long form YouTubes. And then I take as much out of that as I can to repurpose into static image posts and reels and sometimes stories. And then I've got most of my content already done. And then some of it, like I started making my Instagram reels less than 60 seconds. All of them are less than 60 seconds. So I can just auto post them on YouTube as shorts. And I've been getting a lot of views that way. And then also like my Instagram static posts, I just throw over to LinkedIn and everything gets auto posted to Facebook. So I don't really like put any effort into LinkedIn or Facebook if I can get them for basically for free effort,
go ahead and do it. And that's kind of my strategy right now. And I'm putting out 2 YouTube videos a week, 2 blog posts a week, and like 4 to 5 reels, and I'm on stories like 4 days. So I'm
Yeah.
doing a lot of content.
Yeah.
That's a lot of content. Adrienne, I'd be really curious here and like see your Reels pipeline using Social Champ, because I also use Social Champ, and that's I kind of have a similar like
Yeah.
Facebook strategy there where it just like publishes. But I've never been able to like figure out how to effectively do Reels through it. So I'd be really interested to hear more from you there.
Yeah, I definitely like I'm still working out a little bit of the kinks. So maybe in like a month I'll have a good idea, because I'm right now I'm testing some different software of like what's the fastest way to batch these. Because right now my process is a little longer than I want it to be. I feel like I've finally kind of settled into Costa Rica life. So the first few weeks it was like a lot of logistics and stuff, but yeah, things are great, and I'm on my days off. It's like, let's go do a tour of a waterfall or something. So I tag along on the tours sometimes just to talk to the other Americans, and then take some photos and videos for the website. But we're gonna start doing some retreats. I'm thinking about that week, like right after Christmas, like December 27th through like the 4th. So it's really, so you can get that really powerful like beginning of the year, kind of get your intentions and goals, business goals for the year, and get that like kickstart. So
That's exciting.
I'm
It
excited.
seems you're really like focusing down and in and like finding your niche. How does it feel?
Easy. It
Hmm.
feels like it finally got easy.
Yeah, I'd be
That's
curious how you, well, I know a lot of your story because we're friends, but just like, is there a way, or maybe this is part of your content, is like how you created these experiments to like support
Yeah,
your.
I could definitely talk about some of that, because I feel like, like my journey from where, like just doing the corporate life to like where I'm at now, worked on leaving my career for several years. It was like almost a decade that I was like working on getting out of tech before I finally like did. So it was a lot of different things, like a lot of breaks, or like working in other countries, or like, working for myself and trying different stuff. So I've done a lot of different things. Maybe I'll talk about some of that.
would be an awesome thing to hear about. You've had such a like diverse journey because you
It,
weren't even doing the like paddle boarding. Like yeah, you've tried a lot of different things.
then there's the whole real estate thing. There's the whole time where I tried flipping houses for a while. There's some stories just from that. I should write a book.
We've got like who know forget Alex Hormozy. We've got
Yeah, yeah, I'll follow the Adrienne show or whatever your
I
hustle and
have
flow.
thought about this. Like, how do I translate like the rich white man advice for like everybody else? Like, I want like that's on my it's in the back of my brain. Like, I could make some videos. Like, okay,
Like translation app.
yeah.
entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
There are aspects of tech I like. With my business, I'm trying to like focus on those. Well, at least I'm learning enough business stuff to maybe apply this to another business if I want, and then I can go down a different path. But
Well, I posted something about this the other day, and I don't remember if I like reposted it or if I actually wrote it, because sometimes I forget. But it was basically this quote, and it was like, you don't have to get it right like the first time or the fifth time or like the 20th time. Like there is no like you get there and then you're just done for life. I mean, you can always like try new things and experiment and explore. And like, I think we have this idea that we have to like figure it out. Cause like, when you're kids and people are like, oh, what are you going to be when you grow up? You need to tell me, like, you have to decide. And then college, and they're like, you have to decide, like, this is your career. And I think for most people, that just isn't really like now in like the current world that we live in. That's not really accurate. But we have this pressure to just like figure it out, especially if you're starting a business. And I think it's not really helpful. What's helpful is to give yourself room to try different things until you find something that you like. And that might be something you like for a while, and then you might do something else after that. And just giving yourself space to do that, is important.
That's a really fascinating trend that I've seen in like job seekers is literally like every single person that I talk to is like, I have a non-traditional job path. I'm not like everybody else that was like educated and has had this like really specific career vertical. I've like jumped around. And the secret is like no one has a traditional career path. There's probably like one hot fireman that's like wanted to be a fireman since he was 5 or something that like still is. But the rest of us, like there is no right path. There is only learning and experimentation and applying what you've learned to the next thing. And it all grows from each other.
Yeah, and there's so many things that you learn like just as you're going through your life that you can apply to so many different jobs. It's like, when I was consulting for doing like the software architect thing for over a decade, I learned really good like people management and problem solving skills and like how to deal with clients and how to diffuse tense situations on Zoom. Like that is a skill that is really important. So all these different things like how to build confidence with your clients and all of that. It's like now it's like, yeah, I can just take that into whatever else I'm doing in my life. Even if you totally switch careers, you can still use that.
Yeah, that's been kind of like, how do I repackage? Because I applied for like a backpacking guide job. So it's like, well, how do I take this tech career? I do it as a hobby, so I do have experience just from the hobby, but like what from the tech side can I bring into like that type of shift?
Like this is exactly what I do with clients is like
Really?
talk them through how does your historical experience apply to this other thing that you're trying to apply to. And it really just comes down to using the language of the role you're trying to step into and reflecting and like using that language and reflecting all of your experiences in that language. And when you can do that, then it shows expertise, it shows experience, and it kind of gets over that hurdle of like, oh, I don't have any like quote unquote experience.
Yeah, and I think this is something that if you were born to a certain type of family and in a certain type of world, you're just like, yeah, like I can do it. And then some of us didn't have that, right? And if you're any kind of minority, then you're in this space where you're like, well, maybe I don't have the experience, but you probably do. You probably have just as much experience as the other people that think they're qualified, right? And like this is the secret I've been learning over the past couple of years is the people that are really confident, like they're probably not any more qualified. They've just repackaged, like you said, Morgan, and like reworked that and said, well, okay, well, I did this in this other place. It's basically the same thing. And then they're the ones getting the jobs. They're the ones, going after what they want. And so we just need to do the same and get over that like imposter syndrome and that like, oh, I don't have the experience. Like you do. You just have to go dig it out of your history there.
Like that, I mean, that's kind of the case study thing where it's like I wrote it originally sounding quite kind of demure, like I helped them do this and I assisted with that, but taking finally ownership of being like, no, I did this. I led the team and our team did this, like taking more ownership and using empowering words like that helps shift your mindset on it.
That's a really hard thing to do. Frankly, it's something as like women that we are not just like taught not to do, but that we don't do intrinsically to say like that like this was my impact. Like women are community minded beings and we see the impact of everybody else and we never want to negate that. And in like resumes, that's to your in interviews, in these kinds of settings, it's to your detriment. And that's a really like difficult thing to navigate.
I agree. And I think we're also told like, oh no, you need to be nice and you need to like think about everyone else. Like that's a lot of us grew up with that belief, right? That, you just need to be quiet and nice. And I'm all about not being quiet and nice anymore. I mean, you don't have to be mean, but you don't have to just be like, oh no, I didn't do anything. It was everyone else. Like you can own your part of it. You can claim your power and claim your like work that you did. And I think so many people need to hear that and need to do that and just be like, yeah, no, actually I was the lead on that, or actually I did have really valuable input into that project and I helped make it a success. And it's so hard for us sometimes.
Working in tech, so one of the companies that I left, because I did this world trip and right before COVID, and I left my startup job to go do that trip. And one of the things I was struggling with was like, every week we had to give a presentation of our contribution to what's been going on. But most of the work I did was like creating team environments and getting the team to work together and producing a product together. But then it became this whole like power struggle as to who gets to claim that win. It's interesting because it's like, well, part of my win was like getting the team to work together. Like that's a big win. It's just a different mindset.
And especially coming from a tech background where people are used to like measuring velocity, measuring number of like story points completed. We create all of these structures to measure work, but when the work that you're doing is like reducing tension, is like creating a better work environment, allowing people to work more efficiently. Those things are almost impossible to measure because it's like,
Yeah, and I ran into that a lot in my old career too, because I was like the fixer. Like when a project was about to like completely go off the rails, I would be the one to come in and get it back on the rails. And there's no real measurement for that. It's like, what did you do? I kept us the entire contract. Like I fixed all the junior people's mistakes.
Did all the work and mentored everyone.
I made the client happy. And a lot of that is like, it is hard to measure because it's not like, well, how many story points did you complete? It's like, well, I won, but it unblocked everything else, right? Like, or whatever. So yeah, sometimes you gotta put aside the objective metrics and like just dig into some of that soft side stuff.
But we still have to put it in like this direct way in our resumes.
you're like absolutely right. You have to write to the business perspective, which is that like impact driven, revenue driven mindset. But there, I think at least when like I help clients write resumes, I really push them to include quantifiable metrics that show impact. So often those things aren't tracked, or there's not a good way to measure those things. But we can say like increase team efficiency by 25%, and no one ever had the numbers to show that. So if you feel that it is true, then we can write it down. And if you can quote it back in an interview, that's good enough. It's about telling a good story about yourself.
Morgan, I have a question for you about resumes. How valuable do you think resumes are in 2024 as opposed to things like, portfolios or showing side projects, or you know what I mean, like other ways to showcase your skills other than just the resume?
I think it's super, super job dependent. Like if you are trying to get a job as a UX designer, which no one should do that right now because there's no jobs for UX designers, then you have to have a portfolio. It is an absolute requirement. I would say it would be more important than your resume. If you do not have a portfolio, I've literally had UX directors tell me like, you're like first in the trash. So you absolutely have to have a portfolio if you're any kind of design related person. Similar, like engineering roles are somewhat similar, as like they want to see a GitHub of some kind. So it's like, what is kind of going back to our like marketing conversation earlier, it's like, what is the most important marketing thing for the job that you're applying to? And then you want to make sure that you have that thing. If you are, let's see, what are some other examples? Like scientists, if you're applying to any kind of like academic role, that they're going to want a CV, like a 20-page CV instead of a resume. So it's really about like knowing the industry that you're applying into and then like having that thing.
What do you think about, people like in Christy's case where she's B2B and she's not really like applying for jobs so much as like trying to work with companies? Any thoughts on resume versus like white papers, projects? Is it a mix? Like what do you think?
Yeah, I think what you're doing around the case studies is probably what like the best thing that you can be doing, because it is essentially a resume for your business. And that's where you're like showing the impact, showing those testimonials, and then you're going to be networking and pointing people to those case studies. So that's where your like marketing funnel comes into play, is like, how do you get them to read your case study, and then how do you give them a free thing, and then how do you get them to book a call with you and actually get that like funnel going so that it's working for you in the same way that Adrienne's kind of like marketing is on rails right now.
Internal projects, like free projects on topics that are like climate tech related, like topics that I care about, to try to then like show.
Nothing is useful if it's not shown off. So like you have to be able to say like, I did this thing, everybody look at it. All of those projects captured, whether it's under your media or under your previous work, kind of like wherever you can show that you've done those things and start linking out to them. That is where, as people start like searching for sustainability engineers, whatever, your LinkedIn profile is actually just like, it's another SEO page, essentially. Like it is a searchable database for individuals who are looking for people, and you want to treat it as such. So if you want people to find you for sustainability, then include as much like sustainability related content within your profile as you can.
I do get a lot of response when I put things on LinkedIn where people in my network will say, oh, I saw that you've been putting stuff up and like this interested me.
Because, okay, who is your like perfect client?
It'd be a startup working, like helping them get their product developed.
So is it like the director of data science that you're trying to get a hold of?
Yeah.
Okay. So then we think like, where are those people? In Reddit groups. Oh my God, you need to be on Reddit. That's where all the data scientists are going to be posting your content to those data science groups. Or if you're on like Blind, like Fishbowl is another one. So there are threads like Quora, different places where people are like asking questions that you can answer. Those would be good places for you to be like putting content out so that you're like helping to solve problems and then people come back to you.